The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brandon.
Welcome back to another edition of the Brandon Peters Show. Today we have a discussion of 1971's Let's Scare Jessica to Death for you. And returning to the show to discuss the film, one of our very favorite guests, writer Jamie Alvey.
Hello, and thank you for having me once more. It's always a pleasure, and this is always the highlight of my week every time I do it.
There you go. This is your hat trick episve. This is number 3,
Yes.
I believe. This is 3.
This is 3.
This means you're here. You're here, and you passed test 1, test 2, test 3 is like, okay, crowned.
I'm here to stay.
Here to stay. Here to stay. You got your Letterman jacket, or your Players Club jacket? Is that what it's called?
I think it like the members only jacket.
Members only jacket. Yeah. So when my 40th birthday, like my sister said, did they give you the members only jacket? I'm like, that's at 50. You get the handshake at 40, and the 50s when you get that jacket. So, but the members only jacket. How have you been? It's a new year, new you. Your first appearance of 2022.
It is. I've been okay, just dealing with residual anxiety from 2021, but going into a lot of big projects at work and all that stuff, and planning out like big stuff for this next year, and figuring out what I'm gonna finish and what I'm gonna start and edit, and it's been just pretty much a planning period, but we're off to a good start. We're off to a really good start. So.
Good. Have you written out your hashtag goals for 2022 yet?
I've not really written them out, but I have my plans. Like, I've made my list of stuff that I'm gonna finish, stuff that I'm gonna start.
Okay.
Finish, because mostly that's where I'm at. I'm like 84 pages in on a screenplay right now. And I'm winding it down, and it is. It's one of my most favorite things I've ever written, and I cannot wait to share that with everybody. So I'm excited.
Excellent. Look forward to hearing more about that when the time comes around. Cool. We are, let's see. We talked about, when you've been on, we've talked about low budget horror from like the year 2011, was it, so far? So we're going to go back 40 years to low budget horror from 1971 today. So it's fitting, right?
It is. It really is.
Good. We're doing Let's Scare Jessica to Death. It's directed by John D. Hancock, written by Hancock along with Lee Calchim, and it's not like official, and it's considered loosely adapted from the story Camilla by Sheridan LaFanu, but we'll get to that in a sec. I would agree, being familiar with Camilla, but actually really recently familiar with Camilla. We'll get to that. It's starring Zora Lampert, Barton Heyman, Kevin O'Connor, and Mary Claire Costello. All your faves. Everybody goes to their new movies all the time. Highlights. It's about a recently institutionalized woman has bizarre experiences after moving into a supposedly haunted country farmhouse, and fears she may be losing her sanity once again. All right, so we are here. I said, what do you want to talk about? And you said, Let's Scare Jessica to Death. I said, I really would like to keep her as my MC on this show. And you said, no, the movie. And I said, oh, I like that one. So, but yeah, so you brought this. I like this movie. And when you said that, I was like, this is a movie I've wanted to talk about.
Good. Yes.
So I was like, awesome. I didn't have to go like, let's hold on. I was like, yes, let's scare Jessica to death. And I'm going to probably run that phrase to the ground by the end of this, but we're doing it. What was the first time you saw this movie?
No, nobody's going to believe this, but I was like 13, 14 years old when I first watched it.
So 4 years ago? No.
Yeah. I wish. It's like I just turned 28 last year.
There you go.
Me trying to think like how old am I? It's like it's been about 14 years since I first watched that. Now I'm like, really? It doesn't seem that long ago in the scheme of things, but it's been a while. I first watched that as a young teenager, just starting to get into horror and getting into just some kind of just watching weird stuff.
Gotcha.
So that's how that happened.
Gotcha. I honestly I did not see it until it was just I was the Scream Factory Blu-ray of this one. Came out 2 years ago. So I'm only 2 years with this movie, but I do remember it from my video store days. This was like one on the shelf that I'm like, that's a title, and the old poster and stuff, and I just never rented it. I don't know why. I think maybe I thought the title was a bit much, but now I'm like into titles like that because this was originally called just Jessica.
Yeah.
And they're like in Paramount, because while this is a Paramount film, this is like the first Friday the 13th movie where they just made their movie and then found a distributor later. And it was like a super cheap movie, and Paramount picked it up and they're like, yeah, no one's going to go see Jessica. We're going to put, and no, it's a horror movie. So we'll just put Let's Scare and To Death. And there you go. But they gave it a wider release. But the Scream Factory, I was like, oh, I can finally check this one out. Like, cause I don't know, was it streaming anywhere that was like super visible or something like that? But
I think after forever, it was finally streaming on Shudder.
Of course, that's where it would be. Yeah.
Thank God. I was like, yes, it's going to get more visibility because like nobody had watched that movie. And then I found out that Scream Factory was doing like the nice Blu-ray, and I had that on pre-order, obviously.
Gotcha. Yep.
So I was prepared for this.
Yeah, so this movie hits me in like the same way that I love Carnival of Souls, the original Carnival of Souls. Like this movie is just moody. It's quiet. It's weird. It's not upfront telling you everything. You just kind of sit back and it creeps into you. Like, so if you dig the original Carnival of Souls, this is like the spiritual sequel. I feel almost
definitely
to it.
Yeah, because it's got it's just good, just slow burn horror. And it's just so creepy.
Yeah, it really is. It's because and there's a lot of stuff, like there's a lot of stuff that was probably okay at the time that kind of weirds you out now. Like there's some hippie culture stuff hung over into this movie because I think one of the things you're trying to, oh, look at them driving a hearse, hippies. It's like, it's fine. It's a hearse. It's whatever.
Like I've seen people do weirder things.
Right. Yeah. Weird. Yeah. So, but it's when they go to this house that there's a couple. It's Jessica and her husband. Is he? Yeah. And their friend. And they're going to go move into this country house to get away from the city and all that. And when they get in there, there's a woman in there. It's like a squatter. They're like, oh, no, just stay. We're cool. I'm like, who in the fuck would nobody. I don't even know back then they'd be cool with that. Like,
and then she's just kind of freaked, a little like apprehensive about it. And the guys are like, oh, what logic? What logic is happening here? That makes me, from a horror aspect, that makes me really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just that in general.
This woman who probably smells like Columbo is like here in our house. Stay. Have squat on us. We got food. We got like, I would have been like, what the hell are you doing? Like, I'd be like, okay, that's nice, but we live here now. So someone got the house. Bye. Off. Yeah. Just, it's really weird that they're just like, but that's, I think, hippie culture. And I think this movie, in one of, like, from my research, back drafts of the script, because it was something else to begin with. It was a comedy. And I think it was like a, you know, death to hippie culture type parody type thing. And I think a lot of that got left in there. Somewhere around, like, different hands touch it becomes a vampire story, which it never was. Yes, folks, this is a vampire movie. If you haven't watched it, it doesn't tell you that. You don't kind of understand that very much right away, or even if I think you get it when you see it, but that's what I love about it. It's like this, like, stealth vampire movie.
Exactly, because you don't think it's going to be a vampire movie, because you're like, oh, this could go several different ways, and it's like, oh, well, this is a vampire movie.
Yeah. And we talked, like, so up front, like, just to get the Carmilla stuff out there, like, I just recently revisited The Vampire Lovers, which is a Hammer film from, around this same damn time, like, with which is, Carmilla's a story that's been, like, adapted a ton, but Ingrid Pitt is the Carmilla character in that. Emily in this is the Carmilla character, but it's basically the story of Carmilla is a woman who is like a vampire and infiltrates, like, a family and sleeps with all of them and stuff and turns people into vampires and stuff. She's been around for hundreds of years, and people don't know that, and she seduces all the people around. And Hammer, it was their breakthrough in like, queer lesbian horror, because there was a lot of stuff with that in there. And I actually really like that movie, because while there's some exploitative nature to it, it's pretty delicate and gets it across, like, as it treats it seriously. I think, in my mind, and when I watch it, I think it actually treats it seriously, even though there is some arousal to it, but the arousal's for the boys and the girls, it's not pointed at one. So, but this very much follows that, because I think she's even kind of after Jessica too. She has to get through some barriers first, but I think she kind of is into that as well. But that's where it comes from. The movie has no credit, I don't think, that says that. Did it? I meant to pay attention, but I don't think it does. Yeah. I think it's just implied that, that might have been an influence, or we maybe accidentally told the story, because everybody has the same stories in their brain. They just have to pop out here and there. So
it's like we came completely full circle all the way back to Carmilla.
Right. How familiar are you with Carmilla, the story? And
pretty familiar, because it's like every time, there are so many adaptations of Carmilla out there that you will watch a vampire movie and not realize it is an adaptation of Carmilla. So you're sitting there at the end watching the credits, or you're watching the credits at the beginning, and they're like, this is an adaptation of Carmilla, and you're like, oh, because there's like Crypt of the Vampire, and I want to think The Velvet Vampire is also an adaptation of Carmilla. There's so I was thinking about that the other day, actually, that there's just.
Yeah. And Ingrid Pitt's considered the iconic Carmilla with her breakout role. But yeah, there's so much, isn't there, like, it's like Dracula and then Carmilla in terms of, like, literature, like Gothic literature. I'm sure there's, if we want to be fair and not be like rubbing on the classics so much, like, there's some Anne Rice vampire, like Lestat or whatever, would probably be a well-known vampire, probably more than Carmilla now. Even though I think the problem with Carmilla is people don't realize they're watching Carmilla,
because there's so many, and everybody wants
change your name,
their own version of it. They want to play with it, and then they just get lost in their own ideas there, and it's like, this could or could not be a Carmilla adaptation. We don't know anymore.
Right. Yeah. So much. Yeah. And this is a good one. Like, it's really weird. Because you get, I think with this one, you're not necessarily sure. It's because it's not outright about the Carmilla stuff, the supernatural element to it, till later. It's like maybe there's something, or there's something weird going on. But I think this woman's just, who knows, and you're more pissy about the relationship dramas before you
Yeah,
get up, before you get worried about the supernatural dramas.
because at first you think, oh, this is going to be like a psychological horror movie, not a straight up supernatural horror movie. And then it hits kind of like the mid mark, and you're starting like, hey, something's not right here. And it's not
Mhm.
just her stupid husband.
Right, yeah. The not to make fun of a bald guy, I've got kind of a spot on the back of my head, but like I'm like, is this guy this is like these like, woo, this sucks. I'm gonna rack this marriage for this guy. Like, all right, okay. But she didn't like the friend with the mustache. She was into her, but he's kind of like well, you kind of have to because it's just us now and they're together. So,
Yeah.
right, you owe it to me, woman, right? Like,
And he's just there, and I never know how to feel about him because he just feels like he's just one of those people that kind of invited himself.
right. They could have made
And
him like a brother or something, you
yeah,
know?
he's like the friend that nobody knows what to do with,
Right.
and he just kind of invited himself, and then they're just, I guess we'll let him go? Question mark.
Well, he's like, I'm gonna help them with getting the farm up and stuff, and then I'm find my way out of here. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
5 years later, your ass is still there.
Right.
And
Yeah. They're they're starting a family. He's bitching about like, could we get cable or what? It's like, dude, we are no, yeah. I don't, he does help. Like he is doing help, but like with his stuff toward Emily, I'm just kind of like, oh dude, no, like,
he's just trying to get in her pants,
yeah,
and
he's like, well, it's almost like he thinks like she owes it to him, or like we should because we're just here. It's like, all right, man.
it's like, we get it, you're bored, but consent, dude.
Mm-hmm. He's like, well, yeah, but yeah, they also have the weird there's a jumping around here because that's what we do. The bathing scene in the lake, the group bath,
Yeah,
hippie culture, I guess. Like, oh, okay, the water doesn't work in the house, and we're just jumping in the lake and scrubbing it up, dub everybody.
yeah, just because that's completely normal, and I guess it might have been in places
Mm-hmm.
in 71, but like the thought of that now, considering how much water pollution there is in the world,
Right,
that also makes my skin crawl.
right. Maybe the bubbles wasn't soap; it was the pollution. They're just like, what is it down there?
And
Tingles.
then it just turns into like a biological disaster horror movie from
There you
there.
go. Yeah, they mutate. They mutate. But anyway, no, there's good stuff in the movie. We're talking about some of the weird. One of the things that kind of takes you off in a different direction than vampires early on is when Emily is with them at dinner and she wants to have like a seance. And you're like, oh, is this gonna be ghosts and stuff? Well,
Yep.
kind of, but not. Because contacting the dead and stuff. And they have a really nice, eerie stage little seance sequence. And there's a line cracked me up. The nothing's ever really dead. And then the friend goes, right, I even hear the twist is coming back. Like,
Oh my
that classic tune. The twist was like 10 years old then, probably, but no, it was like older than that. But ha ha ha. So, but they have that seance, and also it's like a back to back with the dinner scene. And they
Yes.
start when they play music in the dinner scene, and I really love the way the audio is edited during that.
Yes.
That gets like almost like underwatery and weird, and they really, from a sound design, I think we're always in the place of Jessica in the movie
Mhm.
because her mind's just wishy-washy going around. And yeah, that I love the way that plays out. Like it starts all normal and then just I think he hits a note. It's like it's weird.
I love that, just the whole beginning parts with that stuff too, because you just get to see Jessica move through the motions. and you hear her intrusive thoughts
Yeah.
the whole time, like those like lovely little weird thoughts that she is having that are just indicative of people that are happens to just people that are mentally ill.
Yeah.
Just having the weird intrusive thoughts like it's blood, Jessica, and you're just
Yeah,
you
let's
just
talk about her because she's the titular character and she's a
Mhm,
really it's a interesting character, but it's
mhm.
also a more interesting performance. Like it's perfect, I would say, because I don't know if it's like I don't know if it's something like the actor isn't like I feel like I don't want to say she's bad, but I feel like she stumbled into being good, like great for this. Even like I can't tell if it's the person uncomfortable in the role or if they're just really good at the role. Like I can't, it's a weird,
You don't know, but
yeah,
it's like it works
it
regardless.
does. Like you won't see anything like this in another movie with this kind of performance. Like I think it probably nails it with her mental trauma, the way she is, and she's an unreliable narrator apparently, or we're led to believe she could be, and just the the way her face seems like she's putting on a face for everyone else while not agreeing up here, and you can just see it on her is unbelievable. Like I don't think some of the best actors we have today could pull it off as
Yeah,
genuine. Like
because even when I was very young, I was like, "Oh my god, like she's really nailing just that. I'm awkward, I'm uncomfortable, I'm nervous."
right, right. It's it's if it's fascinating. Like what like and her yeah, I've never seen her in anything else. But I mean, you grab these like localized people in a movie, for one, it starts feeling a bit more real. And two, like just it's stunning just to see because someone like that in a big studio movie for that role probably wouldn't even been seen for it, you
No,
know? Probably
no,
wouldn't even been uh dear agent, could you I want to be a part of that picture. Like, oh, I'm not even gonna make that call, ma'am.
yeah,
Like that's and it's crazy because like now she's on celluloid for history
yeah,
to just for everyone to discover like, whoa, this is really like you can't watch this movie and not come away thinking like, how's a interesting performance. Like, and it's not in a bad way. It's just like, holy crap, this is it's hard to describe, but I would describe it as like genuine, lifelike, grounded in a weird way that helps me believe all of it.
yeah. Because she just there's just something about Zora Lampert, and
Hmm.
it's just she just draws you in, and she makes it so easy to watch her too. But also I would say just her reactions and how she takes in information on screen also just kind of makes you hate her husband a little bit
Oh
more.
yeah. Oh yeah. And I feel like once the Emily girl shows up and they have the dinner, I feel like anytime she smiles in the movie after that, it's like never a real smile. Like
It
never yeah.
it
Like she's
never like quite reaches her eyes. She's
mhm.
just like
She's fighting herself because she doesn't
yeah,
trust herself. Like herself has all the right instincts about this. If the vampirism and all that stuff is true, she is constantly fighting herself in every scene with every person with every decision, biting like, oh yeah, I want Emily to come along and stay.
yeah, and like there's a line towards the beginning. I actually wrote this down where she first sees her in the house and she's like,
Hmm.
"Don't tell them, they're not gonna believe you." And it really makes you wonder what happened beforehand
Hmm.
for her to be institutionalized.
Right.
And it makes you think that there was probably a long period where she was probably severely experiencing mental illness, and her husband was like, "Oh, you're fine," till he couldn't ignore it.
Mm.
There's just I feel like there's just a lot of context clues there that you really just kinda have to sit down and think about after you watch it, because there's so many just details there that either they're inferred or just the lack of that detail really bothers me and like has me wondering
Well, we
what
can
went on
we
for
can
him.
draw our, I think we can draw
Yeah.
our own like her husband is definitely not the right guy to be with her in this situation, because I don't know if getting her away from the city is the right decision, but he's brought his friend too, which clearly means he can't handle this on his own.
Mhm.
And it's like, hey, well, yeah, because like she didn't bring a friend. Like, I don't know if she has friends or stuff, but like he clearly just thinks running away is possibly the best, and is constantly reminding her of her troubles to constantly put himself in power over her, and definitely not the guy to have with her in this situation.
It's an interesting dichotomy, but it's one that makes me mad as hell.
Mhm.
Just
But
I
that's the reaction you're supposed to have when watching it too. Like, it's the movie working. Like, that's
uh, because he does just such and he feeds into that self-doubt.
oh
And
yeah.
I just
So he
ugh.
can win every argument.
Yeah.
That's what he knows, he has a power, and then I think he likes to have her around because he's probably not interesting to anybody else, and he probably, and then the first chance sight he gets of a woman showing him some interest, he jumps in. Like, there's no hesitation. Like,
And
he's
I think she really does love him because it seems like so much of her acting normal is to preserve his feelings.
true, and he's probably also her constant. Like, that's what she's had before her problems, during her problems, and now after her problems. Is That's the one thing, because who knows who she maybe have had upset and doesn't want to be around, or people that feared helping, or
Bec-
feared who she was and didn't want to be a part of the process to heal her. But I don't know, and who knows what went on, what it was.
And
um
just that line of questioning is unsettling too because I was like, where is her family?
mhm.
And I always wondered if he didn't have a part maybe isolating her from other people too. Maybe it wasn't just her being mentally ill, that it could have been him perpetrating that kind of dynamic too. So it's like, oh, if I have you all to myself, I can control the situation and you
Right.
better.
Yeah, she's got yeah, she's got problems all over. She's got her mental challenges, and him, and vampire that's around the lawn. Like, it's not
That's
a good
not,
thing.
it's like a very extreme version of just real life when everything starts compounding, like when
Hmm.
you're just when you're in the middle of a mental breakdown and then just something weird happens, like
Right.
maybe something inconsequential, but it's like your air goes out or something breaks and something, and you're just like, oh God, now I have to deal with now I have to deal with this depression
Right.
and doing this and
Right.
getting up and doing a 9 to 5 just it just everything snowballs, and this just feels like the more extreme supernatural version of that.
True. True.
Like, everything just like moving into a new house is stressful enough, which I did that in the last year, and it's like, I won't lie, I sat and cried a little bit because 'cause I'm exhausted, so I can imagine, she spends 6 months in the asylum, in the institution. She gets out, and, like, 2 weeks later, he has moved her.
Yeah. All they moved in was a hearse too. All your stuff
Yeah,
in a hearse and into this shoddy place. That
that house is still standing, by the way.
is it.
In disrepair. I mean, from what I last read, it's still standing, and but it's in disrepair, and it
Was
can
it?
be
It was shot in the Pennsylvania,
I think
I think,
so,
or something. Yeah.
but
That's
it's still there.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Take a field trip to go see it sometime.
We're gonna go see the house, and we're gonna go see the vampires, and everybody's just gonna gaslight everybody for fun.
There you go. Yes, yes. These are
Yes.
a gaslighting classic, this movie.
This movie walked so the 2020 Invisible Man could run.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
It's because you have your mentally woman in mental unrest and the awful partner who is not doing anything but exacerbating
Right.
it.
Somebody with some younger viewer with today's sensibilities and haven't seen like stuff today would probably watch this movie thinking, okay, there's a supernatural thing with this woman, but there's probably gonna be something revealed about the husband, right? Like he's gonna have some devious thing, and there's nothing. He's just
He's just an asshole.
jackass. Yeah. That's pretty much. I mean, that's it. There's no secret reveal on him or anything else, but the secret reveal that they do have though is they go to this house and they're like, we're gonna sell the shit that's in there. Why not? Like, all right, cool. And they find these old photographs, and there's like a family in them, and one of them looks like Emily, the squatter that they've been letting stay around the house and stuff. And this house has been in this one family for years and years, and they're the first owners that aren't that family because I believe everyone has passed, but she resembles that picture. And I don't know who's gonna buy like an old photo. Like, oh, here's a photo of people. Like, you want?
But apparently people do. That is actually, I think, a pretty popular thing that people do collect. And I was like, I was like, I think I would feel personally odd because it's not my family.
Okay, yeah.
If it were my family, I would keep it, but I wouldn't know what to do with somebody else's family's picture. I mean, I don't know.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
I guess it could be decor for a place like I don't know. So the right kind of like place could use it as decor, like some sort of like vintage house that got spruced up or refurbished and for touring or whatever. Maybe.
I mean, back behind me right here is my deceased great aunt.
Okay. Gotcha. Fair enough.
That was one of my grandmother's like most prized possession because that was her sister, and I was like, no, I'm keeping her.
I'll take it.
I'll keep it for grandma. That's pretty much what was my thought process. But if I had come into the attic and saw that in somebody else's house, my first thought would not be, sell it.
Story time with Brandon here. I wish that had been found in like my grandparents' house. They hadn't passed. They weren't dead. They were moving to a retirement community, and like my parents or whatever, they were moving stuff, and they found a closet, and in the closet was a box. They opened the box. Do you know what they found in there?
Oh God, there's no telling.
Polaroids, like old Polaroids, like of bodies and caskets. Like,
that's
why do they have these? What are they doing with them? Nobody asked. There was like, we just take it, just move it. Somebody keep like, what is that? Like, who needs a picture of that? Like, why is it? And it was a stash. Like, so I don't know what it was.
It's like my dead body picture stash. But we just have that lying around.
Yeah. I don't know what it was. They were like black and white Polaroids too. So they were like very, so they might have got them from, they might have been like inherited to them or something. Cause who knows? It was just, I didn't see them. I was told about this because they were like, I believe I lived out of town at the time, and my parents called my parents like, guess what we found at your grandparents' house? I was like, what? And they're like, I was like, oh, it's weird. It's like they weren't like the coolest people, but like it weirds me out. But I'm like, that's like maybe the coolest aspect there was. I don't know. These are people that back in the VHS tape, they owned 2 VHS tapes. One was The Sound of Music. The other was like Return to Grizzly Mountain starring Dan Haggerty. That was their So if you could tell something about somebody from a VHS or a movie collection, which I always think is a fun thing to do, like what do they own?
Yeah.
That was my grandparents' tell was that. And if you went in their closet, there were casket corpses.
just dead people that,
Damn.
fun stuff.
So that's been a little bit insight on me for my listeners today. So there you go. You have a nice old classic photo of great aunt or whatever. I have grandparents with casket photos.
Just how Victorian of them.
I don't know. But yeah, so there's not a casket photo here. It's just a family photo. It's the creepy moment where you're like, ooh, something's up with her. Is it the same girl? Is it? And does that inform Jessica's mind, the similarity? Is that where things spin? Because it's not until then that we start getting more vampire stuff. So does that create it in her head, or is it actually happening? That's what I think they want us to know, even though, I don't know, the movie's ambiguous, but was it made with ambiguous intent? Well, I think it was, but it's really, I don't know. I think most people would buy it. When they see this movie, they'd take surface level. They wouldn't think more that it might be clouding her mind, but I don't know. There are some scenes that don't come from her perspective, but they could be what she's thinking is going on. Who knows?
Because it's just, there's so many angles you can take with this kind of film, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah, there's no fangs. There's no she'll meet with people, and then you can see like a slit down their neck, cheek, jawbone area.
And then there's the girl that's mute with the bandage around her neck too.
Yep.
That is like the only other woman I can think of in the movies outside of Emily and Jessica, and it just almost seems like that's the only hope she has for a second of understanding this.
Yeah, that's that girl. It makes you think you're gonna find the truth, and you really there is no truth to her. And she's like somebody that isn't believed to exist at all, but someone else does run into her.
This movie is so full of red herrings.
Yeah, it is.
I feel like it's intentional because it subverts, so up to that point in horror, subverts so many of the tropes that we have come to know, really.
Yeah, and there's a theory too. I mean, you could put that something was up with the townspeople, maybe took care of that family and their own type of thing, and they're coming back to exact revenge on them, kind of, because like it's every time you see the guys in town, the old guys, there's always like this creepy vibe, and they're always mean, and they get creepier because they're turning into vampires later. But I do get a kick out of the part where her husband's getting picked on by them at the car. They're like, ha, like the old senior citizen guys are like picking on the guy. It's
and he
deserves it. Oh yeah, his ass deserves it for sure.
He deserves worse.
Right.
He deserves what he gets in the end.
Yeah. But yeah, like it's real creepy, and there's some there's some sensual couple scenes with stuff with the vampire seduction. And of course, there's the big, finale where the dead body's found, her boyfriend's got this, the friend dies. And then, there is a couple scenes early where she sees something in the lake, in the bottom of the lake.
Yeah.
Really creepy. The water gives me the vibes. Have you ever seen Solaris, the original one, the Tarkovsky?
No.
Tarkovsky. Oh gosh, I love that film to death. And there has these creepy like water scenes. I don't think they're meant to be creepy. They just unsettle me. There's like it's like a look of water, and there's like seaweed just flowing like really casually calm, and it gets under my skin. And this is the same thing looking at that body under the water in this.
To an extent, let's be honest, once water like reaches a certain depth, it's scary. It's just unsettling.
Yeah, like the black water lakes of Crystal Lake and a lot of the Friday the 13th was just, I didn't want to go in that.
It's like, no.
It's just black water. Crystal Lake, where they don't investigate any murders that happen in the lake. They just let it go. You know what?
It's fine. It's fine. They're probably dead. It's okay. We're just gonna write drowning
He
on there.
chained the killer to the bottom of the lake. We'll just let it go. How's that? How's that?
Never happened.
I have telekinetic powers, and my father fell under the dock and drowned. Like, we'll take your word for it. We don't need to dig up that body. So,
Sounds like my hometown.
oh, fair enough. Fair enough. But yeah, like, so there's those creepy things, and then there's this, like, if you want to see one of the creepiest things in movies, it's when the undead Emily comes up from the water in the white dress and just like nightmare fuel in daylight.
Yeah,
And it's,
I love daylight horror because it's just, there's just something so creepy about like something just absolutely terrifying happening, sun's beating down because you're supposed to be safe.
mm-hmm.
And then
Right.
you're not.
Right. That's the beauty of Midsommar. Like that.
Yeah.
That's all the bad stuff happens in the daylight almost in that movie.
It completely subverts almost every expectation of what you know about horror because the beautiful sun's beating down, there's all these bright colors, beautiful scenery, and then all this ton of horrifying
Well, it's probably because they didn't have the money to shoot a lot of night stuff too. If I'm just thinking that now, I'm like, there's probably cost saving measures, but it turns out creepy as hell.
Like, could you imagine them trying to film that at night though with the cameras then?
Oh yeah.
Pick up anything.
Super grainy and like, yeah, just
then you're watching it back and you're like, well, damn.
I think you can see her.
That's film that we'll never get back.
Yeah.
That's $500 of the production budget.
Damn it, you can see the reflection of the crew in the water.
That'd be, oh my God. I would love to have like an oral history of the making of this movie because I know Zora Lampert's still alive, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. They had the Shout Factory Blu-ray for it, had Kim Newman, who's a critic historian. He appears on a lot of the Hammer stuff, but this is his favorite horror movie, and he talks about it. There's a historian commentary, and I think the guy who did the score is on it. They didn't really have, I mean, sometimes it's all this in the budget, but it's not like, I know for a fact it's not like they don't go without trying on these to get people. So people might have just been like, no, thank you. I'm past that. That happens. Like they really do try. And I know some people who do the effect, like these things. And I know like for like, He Knows You're Alone, like there's no Tom Hanks interview, but they did try and he was going to do it, but then he got invited to speak at the Biden inauguration. So, they couldn't get it in their deadline. So he sadly couldn't do it, but he was on board for it. Like they asked these people, like a lot of people got pissed about when the Sleepaway Camp Blu-rays came out. They're like, where's Pamela Springsteen? Like they asked, she don't want to, like, and you can't, we think it'd be fun to do that, but for some people, it wasn't the best time of their lives. It wasn't something they want to talk about a lot. So it's not like, yeah, I'd like to know more about this one, but if it distresses people to bring it up again, then I get it. It's fine. Same here. But they did have the score guy, and the score is like, it's sensory. It's like, it sounds like someone's doing their first score, but it also like, cause it's like, I just got this keyboard and I'm beep, 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 but it works. Like it really, it's off. It sets you off tone. There's some weird, just there to get a reaction out of you sounds.
I actually wrote a note down about the score.
Okay.
I was writing it. I was like, that it's discordant.
Yeah.
Like it's like some really intentional discord hit in there because it'll just start going and then they hit a note that's just slightly off.
Mm-hmm.
And that just almost just kind of represents the entire movie. Like there's always something just a little off.
Right.
Every scene, and it's like it doesn't perfectly come together for you or for Jessica. So it fits thematically.
It really does. No, I wouldn't have it any other way. And I love these old score. Like probably trashed back when it came out, but now we're like, oh, art. Like, you know, like nobody imagined that we would be like deep diving in this film, like, oh my gosh, there's so much to say about. When there was, when they made it, they just didn't have money like they did, but then there's an appreciation for that. And I wish they made films like this nowadays, or that look like this, you know, like it's, yeah, we get a lot of flat digital movies nowadays, and that's nothing. I mean, not against like low budget. You got to make your movie, you make your movie, but I'm just like visually appealing when people had to use film and you had to know how to use a camera and you had to know, like, there's an appeal to that.
Yeah, there's an art there
Mhm.
that that we don't see a lot of, and I just feel like the 70s has just its own look and
Mhm.
feel when it comes to film, just across the board. Because um when I think of like my favorite ones from like that time period, because you have Let's Scare Jessica to Death, and then you have Don't Look Now, and then
Yeah.
you have Black Christmas, and they all just have this very distinct, what you just know it's the 70s.
Right. Well, you know what's funny too? Like, I recently I rewatched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a movie I watch a lot anyway. I showed it to my son for the first time. He'd never seen it. And I know people are like, "Oh my god, you showed him that." So I'm like, "Dude, you do not see anything in that movie. That's like the beauty of it. Like, title sounds more horrendous than it is, and the violence in it isn't as bad. It's the nuttiness." But I'm like, I watched that film. I'm like, this is one of the best like shot movies like ever. Like, not just horror, not just for low
Beautiful.
budget, like ever, ever. Like,
Just the way they capture the the actual like natural light in
yeah,
some of the scenes is
like
unparalleled.
you can hold that movie up to like Kubrick. Like, it's
Yeah,
that good. Like,
it is.
that's how good that like Daniel Pearl shot that thing. Like, it, and it's astounding because it came from no money at all, and they were able to pull off stuff like that. But yeah, stuff like this has some beautiful shots in it. It knows how to capture the scale and stuff of that house and make you really feel like uneasy whenever they're in that house. Like, you feel like something's going to happen in that house, and not a lot happens in that house. Like, but you're uneasy whenever you're in the house. You're only kind of comfortable like out in the woods where stuff does happen. And then the I have my notes. The one person I think we see Jessica like genuinely happy with and honest is the pawn or the antiques dealer guy.
Yeah.
She is loving that dude up. Like, she eats up his stories, his demeanor, talking to him about stuff. And he's the one who brings up the
Mhm.
vampire stuff. But like, she is like
Yeah.
at her happiest, I think, when she's around this guy. Because I think it's a taste, because he's from the city, and it's a taste of that city that she got taken away from. And now
Yeah.
she feels comfortable and at home here, where it's been a mystery out there at the farmhouse.
And it's a nice scene, because
Hmm.
you just you get in a good way, you get really worn out and you get really tired, and you're like, somebody please help this woman. You just
Right.
feel so deeply. It's like you don't want anything bad to happen to her. You're
You
like,
don't want her to be scared to death.
please take care of her. Something, let something
Right.
good happen. And spoiler alert, it doesn't.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny, like the title of the movie, Let's Scare Jessica, it infers something more exploitative, more big
Yeah.
moment jumpy, and popping it in, it's this moody character piece about mental illness and vampires, and it's like slow. I don't really say slow movie. It's not a long movie, and it's certainly moves at a pretty good pace, but some of that's like relationship drama too that's in there before horror. And it's just, yeah, the title like suggests something of like killer in the woods, like,
And not like what would be comparable to, like, something that Neon would be distributing, or
right,
A24 would be
right. No,
distributing.
this is exactly what they're doing. Yeah.
It's
This
like
is, yeah.
because all of those like niche like brands and stuff that are not so niche anymore now would
Mhm.
be would
Yeah,
be just
secret's out. They make
yeah
good movies.
would be distributing stuff like this today. And then you have that title, and I've thought about that title ever since I watched it because I was like, the dissonance is
Mhm.
hilarious.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
The, because you get like this pretty cerebral film, and then there's that title that you're just like, huh.
Yep. Boo. Like that's the title. But yeah. The finale is big, like vampires are everywhere, honing in, it's pandemonium. And then she ends up killing her husband with a big hook while she's on her boat to escape all the vampires while they just sit in the woods watching her. And
Ugh,
yeah.
the chills there. That just the shot of all of them there on that bank, the
Mm-hmm.
watching her, and she's just out there on that lake, and then there's the light and the mist and the fog, just gorgeous,
Mm-hmm.
but it's horrifying in
Right.
context.
Mm-hmm.
And I just that's one of my favorite just shots from a film, period.
Yeah. It's so creepy. It's so good. Yeah.
And it just shows that you don't have to always do something hugely just bombastic in horror.
Mm-hmm.
You can effectively be very quiet and still have the impact that it just kind of goes with what you're doing with it. And
Right.
that just went perfectly with that film. I could not imagine them doing anything else with it at the end because it just fits.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it blew my mind like 14 years ago. It blows my mind now because it's
Right.
just
It is.
beautiful.
Yeah. And if you and like I compared it to Carnival of Souls, and if you were to go that way about it, then it would be a in her brain thing. And when the creatures all convene at her at once and then disperse, it's because she's realized what she was
Uh,
clouding and is now back into reality that is Twilight Zone-esque. But I don't know. I like vampires. I want it to be vampires. So
me too. It's like I do, here's the thing. It's like I want her to be right about this. I
mhm.
want her to be right about this so bad. And I think that it's because personally I really relate to Jessica.
Yeah.
Um, because I first watched this at a time in my life where I was having a pretty difficult time at school and stuff. And I was very much, struggling with my own perception of events that was happening because I knew what was happening, but everybody would be like, well, you know what, you're just crazy. You're just experiencing this different. They're not bullying you.
Yeah.
The kind of thing where it's like the administration's even in on it kind of thing. So I'm sitting there watching this as a kid and I'm like, good God,
Yeah.
why is this like holding a mirror up to how I feel? Because she's sitting there on the lake, like, there it's like I have to believe it's true. I saw it, it happened.
Yeah.
How else can I process this? So it was kind of an interesting time to find that movie, and I've written about that before, for Certified Forgotten.
Okay.
I'll name drop them. I wrote about Let's Scare Jessica to Death, and watching that for the first time and how it's just I've kind of fell in love with just that kind of niche genre of the woman that no one believes in the movie.
Rosemary's Baby.
Oh God.
It's a big
Watch
one in that
watch
canon.
that watch that as a teenager too. And
Mm.
it still creeps me out. And like one thing that really gets me about that still to this day is the fact that the neighbors the cast of us are so in her business over this
Mm-hmm.
baby, and I hate it. I don't hate it. I don't hate the movie, but I hate that aspect because it makes me so damn uncomfortable. I'm like,
Right.
get away from her. It's like I don't like people that I am acquaintances with in my business. Like I don't want
Right.
you in her business. So, I just kind of have a affection for movies like that. I have affection for characters like that, because I think it really does mirror a part of life that we don't talk enough about, because this stuff happens.
Yeah.
At least that part where you see people who struggle with their own perceptions of reality, perceptions of, themselves, mental illness. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's just surviving with mental illness. And
Yeah.
one thing that I know that I find also relatable is that at the very beginning, she's worried about, just kind of sliding back into like a bad bout, because
Mhm.
they never really name what's wrong with her. So it
Right.
could be anything. Um, and like, I think anybody that struggles with mental illness has that kind of fear when you're going through a really good period that things are going to get bad again.
Right.
I could,
You're never fully comfortable. You got to leave that door because you know you've been there, and yeah.
yeah,
But life also never, isn't,
mhm. And even more so as an adult watching it, I'm like, I really get that, because you're like, oh, things are going too well. It's like, when's that depression gonna crop up?
right.
When's anxiety gonna hit?
I always have that when things are going good. I'm always like, okay, well, this is gonna crack. What's gonna fuck all this up?
What's gonna happen? And
Mm-hmm.
and that's just because everything, it just seems like cycles through.
Yeah. And when it's bad, you're like, I know it can't last forever, but it can last for a long time. And who
Yeah,
knows? Like, and some people can't. I mean, I feel fortunate that I can get through things, but I know there are people who can't. Like, their struggles worse than mine, and like I don't know what that's like, but I have compassion for it. But yeah.
definitely, because it's scary. It's
Yeah.
scary. It's scary on any level, because dealing with that stuff firsthand myself, I was like, I don't wish that on anybody. I don't
Right.
wish it's like, there, how people are like, I don't wish that on my worst enemy. It's like, no, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, because
Right.
you just
Depends on
you
who your worst enemy is. Some people might wish on.
I
I
mean,
just
there are some people out there that they're not great. They're not great. But everybody's got their own cross to bear, their own problems there. And I just, man, like, when I rewatched this, like, as an, like, 26-year-old, like,
Mhm.
living on my own for the first time, figuring stuff out. Oh, that it hit me really hard there, because like, I was experiencing where I would go in and out of like depressive episodes and panic attacks, and like for a little bit it would be okay, and then it was definitely not okay. And I had a lot of that happen last year too, because it's like 2020 happened, and then 2021 decided it was going to top that.
Yeah.
For everybody. So I find it a very relatable film. And I think that there's something to be said, because some people will be like, oh, older films are bad. And I'm like, you don't know what's going to speak to people, and you don't know what certain people need at what time.
Well,
So
all it takes is one to unlock your love for it all. Like, that's like I'm still waiting for that anime film I watched that like makes me get it, and I go through and I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, why didn't I see anime like this before? I'm always open-minded to that. Like, it's one of my weaker points in my film entertainment appreciation is I do have ones I do like. There are some and stuff, but um as a whole, it's a thing. It's not an easy one for me, but I'm always trying, and I will not knock people's genre loves and stuff like that for it. But like, yeah, an old movie, you could watch one and it could unlock just a dive into similar stuff, finding new stuff, appreciating stuff you might not have before. Like, yeah, like and I don't understand that, because I've always been a person who loves all periods of film history. I always dug back. I always I went to the video store. I go back to the catalog section. I went just in the new release wall. I was picking up stuff. I heard that one. That looks weird. I'll pick up that. I don't think kids do that nowadays, or they like on Netflix pop. Oh, it's old. 5 minutes, move on. Like you had to, when you rented, it was commitment.
Yeah, you
Haven't. I'm
had
watching
to.
that. I paid. I'm watching it. Gonna watch the whole thing. Maybe people were like that before, where they stopped a tape or something and didn't, but I wasn't, and I certainly love digging into film history. I wanted to know. I would watch things like, let's go easy. Star Wars. George Lucas is awesome. What's Star Wars? Where'd you get that? Oh, I watch these, Kira Kurosawa films. This old Western, The Searchers. I'm like, well, I need to see The Searchers. I need to see The Hidden Fort. I need to watch this Kurosawa. And then Kurosawa, I'm like, this guy's awesome. What are all these? What are the, and you watch all those things and you learn and you like see where they come from. And inspirations, and it's cool. And then you see movies that get made now and you're like, nice little trick there. You got that from this. I like that. Last Night in Soho, there's so much Italian horror in that damn thing. And it's not necessarily like an Italian horror movie, but man, the stylistic choices on it. Malignant as well. Malignant is super
Oh
Fulci,
my God.
super Fulci, but it's awesome. I appreciate that. And if you see that and be like, that, I really like that. Well, it was like this. Ooh, go check out that. Like, I just don't understand the lack of wanting to research old things. It seems to be a generational thing right now, but who knows? I used to just not in English, don't want to watch it till I saw Run Lola Run. And then I dove into like what I like to watch things with subtitles. That was awesome. So that was dumb, Brandon, when he was like, I'm too good for that. But no.
You get past that, like, I swear I think I watched like 10 Mario Bava movies last year.
He is brilliant. He is a brilliant one.
It is, because I had not really watched any of like the Italian Gothic horror stuff that anybody had done, and then I just kept watching
You
them.
see Kill Baby Kill? That one's awesome.
Yes.
And it's the thing is, it's such a varied catalog too. Like someone like Argento, it's like you get what he does. He does it really well, and sometimes he hops to different areas, but there's like a through line. Bava like here and here and here and here and here, and they did like a Hercules movie, and then you got
he wanted to try so many different things, and also just so many different kinds of horror too. And I really appreciate it, because what happened was I just kind of watched The Whip and the Body on a whim.
Oh, okay.
I like Gothic horror a lot.
And Christopher Lee, you're like, it's a friend of mine. I'm gonna go check him out in this.
I love Christopher Lee. And so I watched that and I'm like, I loved it. And I know a lot of people don't like that one, and they're like, this is just pretty trash. I'm like, no.
Pretty Hammer AIP era like trash is amazing. Like
exactly. If it's trash, it's my kind of trash, baby. I want it.
Yep.
Because I was like, I could draw a direct line from that to Crimson Peak.
Boom. Yeah. Crimson Peak is in love with that stuff, and that's why I love Crimson. And when Crimson Peak came out, people were pissed. I'm like, oh, y'all never watched Hammer before, have you? Or like, Crimson Peak is like a Carmilla-esque era type thing to tie us. Still on topic.
Here's the thing: it all is that kind of Gothic horror. People don't understand it.
Your shirt, Rebecca, that fits with those. It's way before them, but it feeds into what those are. Yeah, definitely.
It does, and that's kind of my thing, is picking like the weird, creepy Gothic horror stuff, or stuff that's just completely out there. There's no in between.
And I'm happy to have this episode as part of the catalog to talk about Let's Scare Jessica to Death. That was odd, like slipped my mind. Like that's like one I'm like, oh my God, I'd love to deep dive that one. And here we are, we've done it. So
I'm so glad that you were happy that I picked that out, because I was like, yes. You never know what people's reactions are to some of these movies, because that's one that a lot of people still haven't seen, and I'm like, watch it, please. Watch it. Scream.
And I'm a relative recent convert on it as well, so yeah.
And it's like, And I know I'm the outlier most places for this because I just stumbled across it when I was
Mhm.
young. And
Okay.
um there's never a wrong time to watch something
Nope.
though.
Nope. And heck yeah, there sometimes there is a wrong time, but you should find a right time to watch that thing you watched at the wrong time sometime. And now I'm making
And
tongue twister weird things.
there's a
Yeah.
wrong time. Like sometimes if I didn't like a movie, I'll go back and rewatch it.
Oh, always. It could have been
Even
that day. Could have been
if I was
something.
in a bad mood. Because sometimes if I want to rewatch something and I know I like, I'll just be like, I can't enjoy that right now.
Mhm. Well, I've had days where I tell my tell my mom I was like I'm gonna go see that this weekend, so I'm gonna what time would be best for me to leave to go see that or whatever, and then I'll be like, I'm not going to do it. Why not? I'm like, man, not in a good mood right now. Like, what? Really? I'm like, movie might not put me in a good mood. I might be in a bad mood. Be like, well, I saw that. So
And sometimes you have to mentally prepare, especially if it's a filmmaker whose stuff you know real well. You have to mentally prepare
yeah,
for
I
it.
want to meet the film on the best terms we can meet at. Like, I don't want
Like
to just shove it in. I'm not a cram. Like, I can do cram sessions on some like research and things like that. I don't like to, but
like figuring out when to go watch Doctor Sleep, where there would be like opening day.
mhm,
I went in the middle of the day because I knew there'd be like maybe three other people in there. So if
mhm.
I had to bawl my eyes out in the movie, there would not be that many people in there because
Right.
I knew what I was getting myself into. So, there's just some stuff that you gotta do some logistics, check out your mood and see
Mhm.
see how you're doing because it's like you'll sit down, it's like I can't do something heavy. I have to watch something completely mindless right now. So
True. I get you. I get
I'm
you.
I'm the same way. I have to, kind of check in with myself and be like, okay, are you good? And it's like, I'm good. We can do this. So, and then there's some stuff that you kind of get a hangover from that it was so good that like nothing else compares to it. And then
Right.
but you can't really watch it again right off because it just devastated you that much. I
I
do
well,
stuff like
I had a thing where I watched West Side Story and Belfast in the same day this
oh
year, and
man.
I was floored by West Side Story. I loved it, and then I watched Belfast, which is a pretty good movie, but I was just like, no, it's not West Side Story. And Belfast, one of the best shot movies of the year, but the cinematography wasn't as good as West Side Story. So I really felt bad for Belfast that day. That I was like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that to Belfast,
I know that's just
but it happens. So
I'm telling you, like, there was a period this fall that everything that came out after midnight mass, it was just like, that's not midnight mass.
Oh, well, Midnight Mass, I waited. I was so busy in October that everybody's all watching it. What I'm like, I'm not gonna. I don't want to cram this. I
Yeah.
don't. I want to watch one episode a day and get through it that way.
Mhm.
And I did, and I loved it, and I'm glad I did it the way I did rather than cram it. So,
There's because I have to space out
mhm.
any Flanagan series
Yeah,
because I have to take it in. I
hmm,
cannot, I can't watch it all in just one
right.
because I, how do you expect me to watch 7 episodes crying through?
Right.
That's pretty much me. It's like I have to take some time to recover. And thankfully that like I got the screener on Labor Day weekend and I was like, yes, I'm in a good mood.
Hmm.
Things are gonna be okay. Things were not okay because I watched that and I'm just sitting there crying
All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap us into our what else segment. This is where we just talk about anything else we may have written, done, put out there in the world, or just read, watched, listened to, taken in, maybe rode a roller coaster you want to talk about. So, Jamie, what else?
Oh my God. The funniest story though about stuff that I have been reading in like the past year. I last year, this was kind of like my anxiety depression, I think.
Okay.
I read 85 issues of Hellblazer.
Oh, okay. I would say you're hooked.
Yeah, I read 85 issues of Hellblazer, and man, I was like, I'm in deep.
Right.
So I did that, and right now I'm like in the 9th volume of all of that. I'm rereading The Haunting of Hill House because
Okay.
I'm teaching that in a class,
All right.
because I was like, hey, you know what? The kids will like Hill House. Spooky. They're gonna love it.
Spooky
And then
wookie. Yeah.
I'm reading a collection of short stories by Christine Makepeace right now.
Okay.
The Sound of Breaking Glass. So I'm reading like 3 different things at the same
All right.
time. So,
That-
normal stuff.
That's something I can't. I'm like a one book at a time person. Like I could watch like multiple TV shows or something at a time, but I can read a fiction book and then something nonfiction-y at the same time, but I can't. I stick with my story, I guess. But
I don't know. I don't know how I'm doing it right now. I don't, because I'm
well,
usually
I
not.
can't tell you. I can't do it myself.
I'm usually the kind of person who doesn't do that, but I've been reading like Hill House when there's lulls at
Mhm.
work. And I've been reading Christine's book here. And then for some reason, I'm one of those people, I have read so much Hellblazer just soaking in the bathtub.
There you go.
It's like, so if anybody has just wondered what I have done to keep myself sane over the past few weeks, but mostly also in the last year, just a lot of Hellblazer.
Just blazing some hell.
Yeah, just you're just sitting there wondering what the hell John Constantine's doing that day, and you go read it, and you marvel at how a man can be so smart and so stupid at the same time.
And you've got a movie you can watch, and a season of television, and multiple seasons of Legends of Tomorrow you can watch.
I'm gonna tell you, we I just I rewatched the movie because I watched that at the tender age of like 12.
Okay.
And I remember not being impressed by it at 12. I think I was less impressed by it as an adult.
Gotcha.
But I started watching the television show, which I was not crazy about the writing, but Matt Ryan's portrayal of John Constantine, I kept coming back for that because I was like, what is he putting in this performance? But anyway, and then I watched all the animated stuff because I was obsessed.
Gotcha. Yeah. I did a convention with him before he got carried over to Legends of Tomorrow, before he started crossing over with the other CW stuff. Seemed like a cool guy. I didn't talk to him or anything, but his booth wasn't far from mine.
You were so close. And now
been like, yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Wish you had an embarrassing story on him too, because
no, I don't.
One that was great.
I was just like, I remember. No, I was like, I've seen him in person. I was like, oh yeah, I've seen him in person. So
it's a small world. You don't realize that till you're sitting here doing that.
Right. My Wellness isn't hellblazing, but I had to review the Blu-ray for it, so I took it in again. I had been a while. Hitchcock's Stage Fright. Have you seen that one?
I have not. I've not seen that one.
This is one of his like considered lesser ones, but I think it's better than it's definitely like middle of the road Hitchcock. It's the one he did before Strangers on a Train, and it's kind of in the middle of like a dud run. Like he did Rope, Under Capricorn, which is Stage Fright, and then Strangers on a Train, which is great, but it's kind of got experimental stuff, and I brought it up here because it also deals with an unreliable, like it got trash because it has a flashback that's not true, and it's at the beginning of the movie, and it sets up like how this thing is, and he got dug at by critics for it, and he wasn't happy with himself about it when he saw the final picture. He's like, well, there's nothing I can do. He didn't like it editing, but I think the weird thing is nowadays we're used to that. Like we had movies like The Usual Suspects, And we also like Mr. Robot. That show was wholly unreliable narrator throughout. You didn't know what to trust. And I think we've had so many movies and things like that. I go back and I'm like, oh, that's what this got dogged about, was the flashback. That I was like, I just took it like, well, he told the story, but like the difference, I guess, was him telling it, but them showing it happening as well. But I'm like, that's more exciting to watch than just him telling this like story that would, the flashback's like 15 minutes, 20 minutes long. It's like the first act. But
I love stuff like that.
yeah.
I love a good unreliable narrator.
But he's got like brilliant camp. Like I think he like, because Rope is his one take movie where it's all one take. I think he's still flirting with technical stuff, because there's like brilliant stuff. Like there's a scene where when the guy's telling the flashback, you see him and someone knocks at the door, and it follows him up here. And then as he goes to the steps, it pans down to his feet. You watch him go down to his feet and the steps, and he opens the door, and you see the feet of a woman with a trench coat on, and she opens her trench coat, and there's just a blood stain down her dress, and it pans up, and we're introduced to her, who's like this killer that we're told about in the thing. And I just thought like that was a great follow reveal. And then there's one where a woman's she's changing clothes, like taking a coat off, but the scene's changing behind her, and they kind of do it rear projection, but it's very clean around her. So it's not like messy. It was really interesting. So I'm like, he's playing around here. He's doing interesting stuff, and it's a pretty solid movie. It's not like top flight Hitchcock, but I think it's a lot better than its reputation.
But that's the thing. I think sometimes when people flip the script on stuff, no one really knows how to.
Right. Yeah. Different is always like, oh, that was bad. That was bad.
In hindsight, I think a lot of stuff even some of the stuff that we're seeing today is going to get like some really good reevaluation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's always the, it was good actually crowd. Like, and sometimes you're not there you're like, oh man, now that we see things this way, oh yeah, that is a fine movie. And then there's some people that are, stick in the mud or whatever, like, nah, it was never good. Oh, this. But we live off that. The Thing was trashed.
Oh yeah.
Now it's like Carpenter's, like, people consider it his best movie. Like I don't, because it's Halloween and there's no arguing that. But anyways, some people consider The Thing like his greatest achievement, and that was trashed. Nobody went and saw it at the theater. Blade Runner, one of the greatest films of all time. Not 1982.
I think a lot about stuff that was not well received when it came out. Like Black Christmas, 1974
right?
wasn't.
Halloween wasn't until Ebert wrote a glowing review. All the other critics were hating it at the time.
I just think it's funny, like how people hate on like any subsequent Black Christmas movies, because I'm like, hey, you're just keeping up the legacy.
Yeah, it's the legacy. Yeah.
It's the legacy. Like, but give it like 20 years and it's going to get reevaluated and people are going to change their tune. And they already are on the 2006 one from what I've seen.
Oh, let's do that. I recently revisited. I didn't like it in the theater. Well, actually, I can't say I didn't enjoy it in the theater. I had a good laugh in the theater watching it because it's so, and then I watched it again. I'm like, this is dumb. I think this movie, it's like they knew it was dumb fun. I thought they were making something serious. I was off, but it's a comfort watch to go back to that I wasn't expecting. Like it's silly. It's good. It's a good silly. Yeah. It's like, that's the legacy of Black Christmas. That is true.
And I just was like, all of them have just not been well received at all. So, and my mind automatically goes there when people are like, stuff getting reevaluated. And I'm like, now we hold the 1974 one on like it's a pedestal. It's like it's one of the great horror movies.
Right. Yeah. And I liked Prometheus from the jump back when that came out, and like a lot of people like were hating on like little dinky details. And I'm like, I think people actually thought this movie was going to solve the mystery of life and were disappointed when it was just a movie. And then there's like all this like, oh, Prometheus is great. I'm like, it was fine back when it came out. Like,
I saw Jennifer's Body in the theater.
Oh yeah, that's a largely reevaluated one.
I liked it from the beginning. So, I just think it's fun to watch these trends and see how opinion and taste
I
changes.
think Diablo Cody as a whole has had a bad rap because
Yeah.
someone couldn't believe a woman would be into the things she's into like that.
And like some of her stuff is absolutely wild.
Mhm.
And I think that she's going to get a big reevaluation at some point in her life.
Oh yeah.
I hope soon, because I've seen several people discuss her film Young Adult.
It's a brilliant movie. That was robbed Oscar season that year.
Oh my God. It's immaculate and it's messy. And to go back to something we were talking about before all this, Patrick Wilson's in it.
Right? He's great. Oh, that's one of my favorite Patrick Wilsons. Yeah.
Patrick Wilson everywhere.
I once remember like people misunderstood. Like I saw a person on like I got in a back in the day Facebook argument because that was like a top 5 film of the year for me that year it came out. It was a bad movie. Don't watch it. So I'm like, what? I was like, I'm sorry, but what was so bad about it? And she seemed angry that she didn't wind up with Patrick Wilson in that movie. I'm like, so you wanted to see a marriage destroyed, left with a pregnant wife? Like, what were you wanting? Like what movie were you going to see? Like,
I probably also would have wound up in a Facebook fight over Young Adult.
I was like, what are you? I'm like, this is a great movie. Stop telling people not to watch. Like, I always wonder that thing where like, oh, well, that rando over here said, don't watch it. So we should. I'm like, you do not make up your own mind. Like, I don't care. My friends who I agree with most of the time on movies can tell me like something's trash, but I'm like, I might be the one outlier that's like, that was freaking awesome. I'm only taking it for myself.
That's the thing. When I tell people that something's trash, I'm like, it didn't work for me, but I'm like, I might like it. I mean, don't go off my taste
Right.
alone. I'm just one little woman out here who's not liking this.
Right. Yeah, it's like it's my opinion. Like, cool. Like, if you liked it, I envy you because I would have loved to have liked it.
It's like I wish I could have, because that's the thing. I'm like, I don't go into movies wanting to not like them.
Right. I hope everything I go to see, I wind up thinking it's the greatest thing ever. Like, why wouldn't you?
I genuinely want to like everything I watch, and I can't. I just cannot.
Right.
It's like
True.
It's not for me.
Yep. I mean, Halloween Resurrections do get made. So,
Yep.
But anyways, we are off into Crazy Town. But Tully also was great. I like that one. So that'll do it for today, Jamie. Thank you so much. This was another groovy conversation we've had here. Before we sign off, let people know what you have going on and where they can find you.
Well,
not home address, but like internet address find you.
Please don't show up in my yard, but if you do, can you like trim my bushes, because they're kind of crazy right now and I don't feel like doing it because it's cold. But apart from, slacking on yard work, I am always writing, and you can always find me on the internet as a talking head that's just full of writerly anxiety. On Twitter at Jamie A. Writes, and you can find me on Instagram at Jamie Alvey. Sadly, Jamie Alvey was taken on Twitter, and the person who has it should let me have that.
Are you a listener? Let her have it.
Let me have it.
There you go.
I want it.
There you have it. Awesome. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD. Written at work at whysoblue.com. There's more from the Brandon Peters Show this week. But until then, stay film positive.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail@brandonpetershow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.